We're also grateful to have community health advocates here to support us. They're represented by NAMI, the National Association for Mental Illness, and Cathy Costello, wife of late Labor Commissioner Mark Costello. At this time, I'd like to have Cathy speak a few words. Cathy?
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As Michael said, I am the widow of the late, great Oklahoma State Labor Commissioner Mark Costello. Mark and I were married for almost 34 years and raised our 5 children in Edmond, Oklahoma. Mark decided to fulfill a lifelong dream to run for public office and serve the public. In 2009 and 2010, he chose to run for the Oklahoma State Labor Commissioner position because he thought he could make an impact on the wage earner and the worker in Oklahoma. He himself was an entrepreneur, and he worked every day of his life that I knew him. He wasn't afraid of a challenge. He wasn't afraid of a challenge to run for office, to work, to raise a family. But the greatest challenge that Mark Costello and I faced was when we learned that our son, our oldest son, was diagnosed with severe mental illness. The devastation was incredible. The impact on our family was staggering. It affected our children. It affected Mark and I, but most importantly, it affected our son, who suffers within his own prison of his mind of mental illness. So Mark and I began to do everything we could to find out, how can we help our son? How can we treat him? We studied endlessly, hour upon hour, day after day, month after month, reading about facilities, treatment, medication, what is the best course of action for his diagnosis. But we were silent. We were part of the stigma. We didn't want anyone to know. He was the labor commissioner. He was looking to run for higher office at the completion of his term. Finally, after suffering for a couple of years, Mark and I decided to attend a NAMI group, National Alliance of Mental Illness at Crossings Community Church. What a shock when we walked in and we saw someone from the legislature there. Someone from our church, a lady who would wait on us at a local restaurant. And we went, oh my gosh, we're not alone. Other families suffer with mental illness. Well, little did we know, Mark said, we will be silent no more, because little did we know how tremendously mental illness impacts the state of Oklahoma. And many of the things we learned through NAMI. Mark and I discovered that the state of Oklahoma is the second worst in mental health in the union. But we balance between 46th and 49th in funding. We discovered that we are number 1 in female incarceration and number 2 in male incarceration. Wow, is there a correlation there? Well, when you find out that roughly 50% of the people in the Oklahoma County Jail are there for a mental health related crime, and it's not a hospital, it's a jail, there is a relationship. When you find out that people that are in long-term incarceration, the national statistic says it's about 68%, but you can be sure about 1 in 2 prisoners has a mental illness. We have traded hospital beds for prison beds. Mark was stunned when he discovered that in the state of Oklahoma, 1 in 4 Oklahomans suffer with mental illness. That means 900,000 plus Oklahomans have a mental illness. And do you know what the unemployment rate is for those who have mental illness? I learned this at NAMI, 85%. So here's the labor commissioner who cares for the wage earner and the worker, realizing that 1/4 of the population has a great number of people, hundreds of thousands, who are unemployed. Think of the economic, social, cultural impact on our state. As the labor commissioner, he decided to begin to speak out. And he started to talk to legislators about mental illness and the epidemic we have in the state of Oklahoma. It is an epidemic ignored. Here's another shocking thing we discovered. The state of Oklahoma has approximately 300 beds. According to the National Advocacy Treatment Centers, the norm should be 50 beds per 100,000 capita. So, Google's a wonderful thing. You can learn so much on Google. I hope everything they print is true, because I believe everything I read. But I Googled the population for Oklahoma in 2017. My friends were pushing 4 million. Okay, let me be a little more exact. 3,974,000 and a few hundred. That math would say we should be closer to 2,000 beds, not 300. Hence, Oakwood Springs. I was delighted when Alicia called me and asked me to come tour the facility and give a talk to her staff at their orientation last week. I was stunned and thrilled and delighted that Oakwood Springs chose Oklahoma to build their facility and recognized the desperate need that we have for beds in this state. But this is not a place that just has beds. Their foundational belief is to treat the person with mental illness with dignity and respect and kindness. They use cutting-edge treatment. They have follow-through after you leave the facility. There are outpatient services available. They treat mental health. They treat substance abuse. They fix homemade meals, cooked meals. Many times people with mental illness eat very poorly or have no money because they've lost their job, because they quit taking their medication, and they had an explosive episode at work, and now they're out on the street. And I know that story because that story happened to my son several times. In April of 2015, my husband went to speak at the Capitol on NAMI Day. And when he came home that evening, I said, "How did it go?" And he said, "Not very many people showed up. A lot of people, they don't seem very interested in mental illness and mental health." He was disappointed. 3 days after he died, I hadn't slept in 3 days, and I wanted to hear his voice again. And I went to the computer and started searching YouTube videos of him speaking, and I came across the 2-minute video of him speaking at the Capitol on NAMI Day, about 4 months before he died. And at 3 in the morning, this is what I heard my husband say as I was looking at that screen. He said, "Many things in life are a mystery. My wife of nearly 34 years is still a mystery to me. And mental health is a mystery. And when we look into the face of a person that suffers with mental illness, we must treat them with dignity and kindness and respect, and we must see the face of Christ. Because if we do not begin to address the issue of mental illness, we do so at our own peril. Mental illness took my husband's life. Yes, his son killed him, but it is because he suffered with mental illness. My husband understood that same philosophy, Michael, that you have here at Oakwood Springs, of treating the person with mental illness with dignity. My husband had a great love for his son. He never stopped trying to help him. He knew he was paranoid. He knew he was oftentimes psychotic. He even knew that it could cost him his life, because we talked about it, but he wouldn't quit trying to help him because he loved his son. My husband would be so delighted with Oakwood Springs. It has brought a lot of joy to my heart this past week after having been here to see this facility, to feel like maybe we're starting to move forward to help our neighbors with mental illness. So I thank you, those of you who have established this facility, those of you who have chosen the vocation, not just a job, but the vocation to work in mental health. And it is a vocation. because it cuts to the heart and the soul of a person who comes in and day out to help people who are struggling with mental illness. I thank you for your dedication. I thank you for coming and helping your Oklahoma neighbors. I thank you for helping Oklahoma be better. I know Mark would be proud of you. I am honored to have been asked to speak today. Please keep my family in your prayers as we struggle to heal and move forward. God bless all of you, and God bless Oakwood Springs. Thank you.